Sitting in my office listening to Senator Reid, meeting with my staff on the bill that we have on the floor, and I wanted to explain to the American people what this bill is. This bill was published last night at 9 o'clock. We got it about 9:45. It spends well over $1 trillion. And in the bill, and I agree with the majority leader, it's important we pass this bill. But knowing what's in it before you can decide where you would like to try to amend it is asking something of senators that they can't give. So, I understand the majority leader's frustration, but I'd also make a couple of points. I mean, in this bill is $8 billion taken away out of the Victims' Compensation Fund. That's not tax money. That's money that criminals have paid into a fund to give restitution to children and women around this country for the harm that has occurred from the crime that was been committed upon them. And we're stealing $8 billion from that fund. In this bill, we're taking it away from, not tax dollars, fines and penalties. And we're going to take it away and spend it somewhere else. You talk about being for women and children. This bill is exactly opposite of that. Money that is due them, we're not going to let them have. We're going to go spend it somewhere else. So knowing those things are in the bill is one of the reasons we ought to read the bill before we can know whether we're going to offer amendments on it. I'd also make one final point. The vast majority of this bill has passed the Appropriation Committee in the Senate last spring and early summer. There's not one of the things that's in this bill that the Appropriation Committee hadn't already done with, and we had a deliberate choice to not put these bills on the floor last summer. So if we're in a snit over the problems that we're having, it's because the bills didn't come in regular order to the floor of the Senate, so they could have been conferenced. And by the way, the House passed 12 of the 13. Our committees worked 12 of the 13 out. So they came out in regular process. They were not allowed to come to the floor. So we have just about finished studying the bill. We have no problems moving on the bill and giving consent to move on the bill once we've looked at the bill. But for the majority leader to say that members of the Senate can't have amendments after having had their staff work since 9:45 last night to look at the bill and attempt to make amendments to the bill, that doesn't fit on a $1 trillion bill. And when the American people find out what's in this bill that shouldn't be in it and the options that we can offer that what should be in it, I think they're going to agree that maybe we ought to make some changes. So I understand the frustration of the majority leader, but I also understand our rights. And this isn't about filibustering anything. This is about being an informed senator who knows what you're doing and knows how to make a decision about how you want to amend a bill. And so we can call it something other than that, but it's not. It's about doing our job. And the fact is we got this last night. So what I would say is everybody that was fine for us going on it without having read it, I would say there's a problem with their position in the U.S. Senate in terms of their oath to do what they were sent up here to do, which is to read what you're voting on, know what you're voting on, and prepare amendments to what you're going to vote on. And, we have this outburst at 16 hours after we got a almost 600-page bill. That doesn't fit with any common sense. So we've instructed our side that we're willing to go ahead and allow this to move forward, but in a process that recognizes that this bill isn't perfect, just as both the chairman of the Appropriations Committee and the ranking member said. So we don't have any problems with it moving forward. We do have problems with spending money that we don't have on things we don't need, and we ought to be able to offer amendments that would highlight that, whether the body agrees with it or not, that would highlight so the American people can see it. So we may not be allowed, based on what Senator Reid just said, to offer any amendments. He is the majority leader. But if that's the case, we're probably going to be here all through the weekend, because that is a right that each senator has, and they ought to be able to offer, especially on a $1 trillion appropriation bill. So I hope Senator Reid has a good night's sleep. I'll try to call him in the morning and try to work an accommodation that will allow this bill to move and not have to be here the weekend. I don't want to be here this weekend, but I will if it's the right thing to get the points out. American people know. I mean, right now we're having no tours of the White House. I could show you hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that are under the control of the executive that they could spend that are a whole lot less important than tours of the White House. And the same goes for us in the operation of our House in terms of the Senate and the House. So I'm sorry I irritated Senator Reid. I'm sorry he's upset with me, but I'm going to do my job. I've been here, I'm in my 9th year, and I've always kept my obligation to the people of this country to make sure I'm thinking about the long term, I'm thinking about priority on how we spend money in the best way, the right way, and offering amendments, whether they pass or not, offering those ideas, because that is not only my privilege, but it's my obligation. With that, I yield the floor. Thank you, Chair.
Madam President.